Good morning. Thank you guys all for being here today. With me today is Lorenzo's mother, Julia Sanchez, Sacramento County Sheriff Jim Cooper, President of the Chief Probation Officers of California, Isa Eamon Kraus, Nina Salarno of Crime Victims United, and the District Attorney of Modoc County. Justice shouldn't be a coin flip. California's juveniles deserve more than a maybe, which is why I introduced Lorenzo's Law to restore the promise made by the voters when they passed Proposition 57. Let's stop gambling with children's futures. Evidence matters, fairness counts, and rehabilitation must remain our priority. California's voters passed Proposition 57 expecting judges to have real discretion to hold the most violent juveniles accountable in adult court using the practical standard of proof. The legislature changed that voter-approved tool. Fitness hearings to transfer juveniles to adult court have become increasingly rare. The California Department of Justice reported in 2024 that out of 32,000, let me repeat that, 32,000 juvenile arrests, of which nearly 7,000 were for violent felonies, and only 24 fitness hearings occurred. 24. The system is broken. AB 2040 restores the balance voters supported, preserving rehabilitation in the juvenile system for those who can change, while ensuring the very small number of truly violent juvenile offenders receive accountability. California must do better for victims and for public safety. We can offer meaningful rehabilitation while providing appropriate accountability for the small number of truly heinous crimes. Together, we will not stop fighting to restore the balanced approach voters intended with Proposition 57 and a juvenile justice system that finally delivers fairness for victims. The inspiration for this measure was Lorenzo Sanchez from my district. Let me introduce his mom, Julia Sanchez, to share his story.
I am Lorenzo Sanchez's mother. Lorenzo was one of my oldest sons. Lorenzo grew up without a father, but that didn't stop him from doing good. Lorenzo was my daily inspiration and a father figure to his siblings, as a role model to many and to the community. Lorenzo was very athletic and a young man who made good choices to stay out of trouble. Lorenzo was the type of kid that would walk away from trouble. Our Saturday, which was supposed to be a family day, turned out to a nightmare. Lorenzo had goals and his future plan. He talked about making it to the Fresno State and guiding his siblings to follow his steps. Now those dreams are gone. His siblings looked up to Lorenzo daily as he was guiding them to follow his steps. Lorenzo was taken by a juvenile who will walk free with the life, with the future, with no consequences for taking Lorenzo's life. Seeing my son's lifeless body on the ground, his eyes staring up in the sky, hoping for someone who would save his life, is a haunting memory. Something I will forever remember, something a mother should never see. My family will live with this pain daily. What happened to my son Lorenzo was not an innocent mistake. In honor of Lorenzo and other victims, we are asking for a small but meaningful step for us families affected by the juveniles who committed these horrific crimes to be charged as crime committed. Lorenzo and other victims didn't have a second chance.
Good morning. I'm Sheriff Jim Cooper of Sacramento County, and my principal job is to keep the community safe in Sacramento. When voters passed Prop 57, it changed the law that a court, not a district attorney, got to decide which youth who have committed a violent crime would be tried as an adult. Then, after Prop 57 passed, the legislature passed legislation to make it, in practical terms, nearly impossible to try a youth as an adult. When I served in the legislature, I oppose this legislation since it meant that juveniles, that means anyone under the age of 18 who commits a horrible crime like brutal murders, will only serve time until they're 26 years old. The result of this change, even the most serious violent offenses, accountability has been weakened, and victims like Julia, here with us today, have to be re-victimized by knowing they won't see justice and putting communities at risk. What we're seeing on the ground, as I predicted, is law enforcement is seeing real-world consequences of this shift. We're dealing with increasingly serious and violent offenses involving youth. These are not low-level crimes. And I'll remind you, at Natomas High School, we just had a 16-year-old shot and killed on campus a few days ago. We're also seeing adult criminals and gangs exploit the system by recruiting juveniles because they know the consequences are far less severe. AB 2040 proposes a common sense modification to make our juvenile justice system fair to victims and safer for our communities. It simply restores judicial discretion to transfer youth cases to adult court when necessary for the most horrific crimes such as murder. It gives judges a practical tool to make a case-by-case decision in the most serious, violent situations. It does not eliminate the juvenile system, or it does focus on rehabilitation. When the system cannot respond appropriately to serious violence, it puts the community at risk. AB 2040 helps ensure that the most dangerous juvenile offenders, which is a very small number of juvenile cases, are handled in a way that protects the public and the victims. This bill respects judicial discretion and strengthens public safety. I urge the legislature to pass AB 2040. Thank you.
Good morning, and thank you for being here. I'm Chief Isa Eman Kraus, President of the Chief Probation Officers of California and Chief Probation Officer from Contra Costa County. I'm humbled to stand here today in support of AB 2040 alongside Julia Sanchez and everyone else. AB 2040 is simple, and it's about restoring balance. The bottom line is this. Due to recent laws that have raised the legal standard to transfer youth to adult court, the practical effect is that it's become extremely difficult, even in some very horrific cases, to transfer 16 or 17-year-olds to adult court. This bill simply restores the standard back to what it previously was, so judges have a practical and workable standard to apply when deciding who should be transferred. This returns the standard to what it was before, so that in the rare and egregious cases like murder, rape, or attempted murder, the system can better balance rehabilitation, justice for victims, and community safety. Let me be clear. This bill does not force the courts to place youth in the adult system. It just restores the tools that were in place when voters passed Proposition 57, which gave judges the authority to decide who remains in the juvenile system and who should be transferred to adult court. Probation works every day to help youth turn their lives around, and we are successful with the vast majority of young people we serve. But there are a small number of cases, the most serious, the most violent, and the most sophisticated, where the current system is not designed to respond adequately. To address that, AB 2040 is narrowly focused and preserves judicial discretion. It leaves the vast majority of youth in the juvenile system where most should be. But in the most serious cases, it ensures judges have a realistic standard to make the right call. This helps restore trust in the system that can respond appropriately when the worst crimes occur. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Nina Salerno. I'm the District Attorney of Modoc County, a small rural county, but more importantly, I'm a victim of violent crime. And I stand here as a member of Crime Victims United in support of this bill in order to give voice to the victims. First, I want to acknowledge and thank the strength of Julia for coming forward on this all-important issue. I also want to thank Assemblywoman Macedo for her leadership on this very important issue. Right now, in California, the most horrific of juvenile offenders, those that commit murder, rape, and violent assaults, are not held accountable in our system simply because of their age. This is not justice. This is not fair to the victims. This is not accountability. And this is not what the voters of California wanted when they vested the discretion with the judges of those offenders that should be transferred. As a district attorney, even in a small rural county, I see the devastation of violent juvenile offenders all the time. I am the one who sits with the surviving victims and with those who have been assaulted or horrible victims of their crimes, only to tell them that our system fails them, that there is not much I can do to have accountability and justice because of the laws that block the transfers. This bill simply restores common sense into our criminal justice system. It gives the judges who are vested with neutrality when they take their oath the ability to assess the worst of the worst by looking at the facts and decide if, in fact, their crimes should be transferred to the adult system and they should be held accountable. This bill does not target all youth. Let's be clear. It targets violent offenders. In 2024, in the state of California, there were over 7,000 violent, that means rape, murder, attempted murder, and violent assaults committed by youthful offenders. You heard that there were only 24 transfer hearings. Only 5 of those offenders were transferred. I think anybody can tell you that shows that the system is not balanced. The system does not do justice. The system doesn't give justice to the victims, and the system does not protect public safety. This bill brings back common sense. It brings back what the voters of California asked for when they recognized that, yes, rehabilitation of youthful offenders is important, but so is accountability for the most violent. Rehabilitation and accountability is a partnership. And what this bill does is restore the ability to have that partnership in California, where we do, and our chief probation officer and other probation officers through the state work to rehabilitate offenders, but it also gives us as district attorneys, it also gives law enforcement the ability to protect public by taking the most violent offenders and holding them accountable. I urge the legislature to pass this bill, to follow the will of the people, and to protect public safety and do justice to Lorenzo and all of those people who have lost their lives to violent offenders. Thank you.
I want to thank everybody for being here today, but I also want to acknowledge somebody very important that isn't here today, and that's Lorenzo. Lorenzo's name will live on as he maybe saves the lives of juveniles in the future, and we want to thank his mother, Julia, for her incredible strength and tenacity, for advocating for not just her son, but so many mothers that will be deprived of proms, seeing their kids graduate from high school, going to college, seeing them get married and achieve incredible things. This is a small step for accountability, but a large step towards reaching balance in a system that is broken and not bringing accountable to the most heinous of crimes being committed. So with that, I want to open it up for questions. Are we good? Anything else you would like to add, Sheriff Cooper? Okay. Thank you all so much for being here.